Hey guys, welcome back to One Man Op Fishing. I'm Michael. Today I'm just going to cover a little, not so much a how-to, but how to get started in bass fishing. Okay, if you want to go really easy, you go with live bait. Okay, so I'm going to cover a live bait setup first. It's very simple. Except that you have to keep buying the bait. So first I'm going to cover the spinning rod and what you're going to need for hooks and the best way to set it up. It's not complicated, but if you're just getting started, then you may not know what to buy, how much to spend, all those things. But I'm going to cover that right now. And then we're going to go to my bait caster, the rod, the reel, the line, and the few things you need to get started there. Okay? All right, let's get to it. Let's talk about what you need for get a starter kit on a rod and reel. Okay, first you want to get, if you're going to be fishing for bass and you're going to be fishing either from shore or if you're going to be fishing from a boat, doesn't make any difference, you're going to want a quality rod. Now you don't necessarily have to spend $150 on a rod. This is a Shimano Scarab. I would recommend a 7-foot rod. I believe this one is 7 feet. Yes, 7 foot. There you go. Hold that up for you. It's a medium heavy action. That's what I would get. Okay, a medium heavy action rod, 7 foot. Because again, if you're fishing for bass or catfish or anything like that, you're going to want a rod long enough so that you can get the bobber, out a ways. Remember, you can't cast live bait too far because it'll come off of your hook. Especially shiners, especially large shiners. They've got a lot of weight. They'll slide on the hook and then off they go. So typically you're only casting 20, 30, maybe 40 feet. And if you watch my last video, you see I'm just hossing it a little bit. So a good 7-foot medium heavy action rod. Now you don't have to spend a lot. You can go to Walmart, which I wouldn't recommend. You can go to Bass Pro Shop. Spinning reel. You don't have to go crazy on a super expensive reel. This is a Sustain from Shimano, a 2000. I got this as a present way back, again, late 90s, early 2000s. This is a 9-ball bearing reel. And back then, I think it was about $225 or $250. I never would have spent that much on just a plain spinning reel, but as I said, it was a gift. In fact, I need to get this thing maintenance. Anyway. So a decent spinning reel. You can go to, again, Walmart, 50, 60, 70 bucks. Just something that's going to do the job, that is, small profile. You don't need one of these giganto saltwater type reels. You want something low profile, something for fresh water. Okay, and you're going to put those together. And this is where I think it's important. If you don't want to miss fish and you want to get good hookups. I'm using 30-pound braid on this spinning tackle, and that's what I would recommend you use, braid. If you're fishing live bait, it doesn't matter. The fish are not concerned with, can they see the moss green line, okay? Personally, I think that all that stuff is a lot of overrated nonsense. I've been fishing for my entire life practically, and I've never had a problem fishing with braid right to the hook. I don't put a leader on any of these, and you certainly don't need a leader with live bait. So run 20, 30, 40, even 50-pound braid, okay, on your reel. You buy 100 yards, 110 yards, 150, whatever your reel will hold, and it'll tell you on the reel, tells you right there, you can see that. It'll hold 170 yards of 6-pound, 120 yards of 8, and 100 yards of 10-pound. So usually on the reel it'll tell you, certainly on the box. So you want to load the reel up, okay? Then what you're going to need is a bobber, of course. These bobbers are cheap. They're probably 25 or 50 cents a piece. They make them in different colors. They also have bobbers that are foam, okay, like this, which also work very well. You can see how old this thing is. It's half beat up and faded. So either one. And you want a decent sized bobber. You want to be able to see it. And again, remember, with a shiner on there, it's going to weigh it down a little, especially the larger shiners. And again, these guys are cheapy. They work fine, okay? They're not going to set you back anything appreciable. So you're going to need your bobber, and you're going to put that however deep you're trying to fish. If you're fishing in, say, 6 or 8 feet of water, then you want to go maybe 2 feet from the bobber, maybe 3 feet. They move up and down. you know, no problem. You can adjust it depending on how deep you're fishing, how deep you want the bait to go. Now, this is important, okay? And I never realized how important this was until I got back into live bait fishing. I haven't fished live bait since I was in my teens, but lately I've been doing a little more of it to catch peacock bass. So the kind of hook you get is extremely important. This is a live bait hook. They make them, every brand makes them, from Gamakatsu to just any of the cheaper knockoff ones that aren't so expensive. But you want something that's very sharp, and you do not want to go too big. This, I believe, is either a 2 or a 3/0 hook. You compare that to a 4/0 hook, and that's just the gap. The gap is the 0. That's a worm hook, okay? This, I think, is either a 2/0 or a 3/0. Now you can see, now could I use a hook like this for live bait, for a shiner? I could if I was in a pinch, but it's too big. When I try and drive that hook through the shiner's jaw, it's gonna kill him. And you don't need to worry about a great hook set with live bait. This little hook, okay? Again, you wanna make sure it stays good and sharp, and if it doesn't, get rid of it. And I have to see, you can see this line's a little frayed here. I'm gonna cut that out tonight. So tomorrow I'm gonna try and do some more fishing, so I'm getting all my stuff ready. Good to do it the night before. Anyway, so a small hook so that when you come through the shiner, okay, the shiner stays alive, and you can also hook the shiner behind the dorsal fin if you want them to swim more. But remember, bass usually eat the bait head first. That's what they aim for. They aim for the eyes. So if you have it hooked in the tail, there's a greater chance you might miss the fish. I don't really have a problem, but I'm just telling you. Through the lips is the best place, but again, you want to have a smaller hook. And the other important thing is, if you're used to fishing worms, anything that's plastic, remember, you have to bring the hook through, okay? You have to, when you set the hook, it's got to come through the plastic and into the fish's jaw. When a fish swallows this, that hook's exposed. So when you go to set the hook, you do not want to, if you watch my last video, you do not want to reel down and hoss this thing back, because if you do, you're going to either lose the fish, you're going to yank it out of its mouth, you might break your line, all kinds of bad things can happen. All you need to do when you see that bobber go down is give it a little bang, just a little hook set. The fish will do all the work. He'll hook himself, and you'll be fine, okay? So that's pretty much all you need. A rod, a decent reel, get the braided line, okay? 30, 40, 50-pound braid, depending on what kind of cover you're fishing, okay? You want to get a handful of bobbers, and you want to get a quality 2/0, 3/0, and you could go bigger. If you're fishing large shiners or wild shiners that are this big, you're not going to use a hook this size. You're going to want to use a 4 or a 5/0 live bait hook, because that'll be fine. But okay, let's get to what you need in a bait caster. Now, a lot of people are intimidated by bait casters, and I remember when I was young, when I first got my first one, which I still have. I still have my very first bait caster. It's a Daiwa. What you need to do is practice with it, but I'm going to get into that in a minute. This is, let's start with the rod. This is a American Hero Speed Stick from Lew's, okay? Again, it's a 7-foot rod, which is what you want if you are fishing any kind of soft plastic. Okay, you can fish anything with this. You can fish a jerkbait, you can fish Rapala type lures, shallow diver, deep diver. You can fish on a longer rod, anything you like. Now, do they use smaller ones? Sure, a lot of times if you're on a boat, you don't have to worry about casting real far. They'll use a 6-foot, 6'3", a rod. Maybe it bends a little more. They use a medium rod. Maybe they'll go with a pure glass rod as opposed to a graphite. That's fine if you're a pro. If you're just looking to fish on the weekends or whenever you can, and you're just getting started, this is what I'm recommending. This is a beginner. So you want to get a 7-foot rod. I believe this rod was about 70 bucks. Again, you could absolutely spend less if you want to, but find something that's medium heavy, that's 7 foot, because you absolutely need that for worm fishing. Because again, you want that arc. When you set the hook, the arc here, that circle, is going to give you a much better hook set than a rod that's only, 5.5 or 6 feet long. And you want the medium heavy, again, because you're coming through the soft plastic, and also you want it for casting. The longer rod is going to give you a better cast, no matter what you're using for a bait. So a quality rod, but again, stay within your price budget. Personally, I think it's a better idea to maybe save up a little bit if you don't have a lot of cash and buy something that's better quality, because this thing should last you a lifetime. These newer rods will last forever. They absolutely will. I have rods that are 30 years old. Maybe the eyelets are gone, they need to be replaced, but the rod itself will never go bad. Okay, that's the rod. Now, reel. This is an individual choice, okay? I happen to like Shimano. This is a left-handed reel. I am right-handed, but I never could understand casting with your right hand and then going to your left, which is the weak arm, for the hook set. That just makes no sense to me, guys. If it makes no sense to you, then buy the left-handed reel, which is what I have here. This is an SLX DC, okay? It's a nice low profile. I don't have giant hands, but I can easily palm this. It's got your settings over here, 4 to 1. 1 is basically free spool, 2 is for, I believe they say, is for braid, which is what I have it on. 3 I think is mono, and I think 4 is fluoro. Okay, it's got your magnetic drag over here, which slows the reel down when you're casting it, gives you a little more drag. So pick a good bait casting reel. But again, whatever's in your price budget. Okay, you're gonna hook it up. Now again, line. Typically on these, I don't go any bigger than about 50-pound test. The reason is I do a lot of fishing from the bank. Okay, so I wanna be able to cast this as far as possible. Now I could keep putting a bigger and bigger weight on there, but usually I stop at about 30-pound. This is 20-pound braid, and like I said, I'm not concerned about putting the leader on it or anything like that. You know, if you're fishing a highly pressured lake in a tournament, or you're fishing against friends and you absolutely want to win, maybe you put a 3, 4, 5 foot leader on there with fluoro or mono to give you a little better stealth in the water. But I don't believe it's necessary for just regular old fishing from the bank by yourself. Again, you're 1-man opping it or 2-man opping it. Okay, so 30-pound, 20 or 30-pound braid. I get the moss green, but any color is fine. If you buy, say, white, just take a black marker and blacken the last 5 or 6 feet, okay? And it becomes nearly invisible in the water to the fish, all right? Fish have a problem seeing that. Okay, so pick your rod. Again, this rod was about $70. I have some that are more expensive, but I love this rod. Very sensitive. The braid is important also because of the sensitivity. You know, I fished with mono for years. When I was a kid, we didn't have fluoro or braid. And I can't tell you how many fish I missed because they would hit my bait. I was probably worm fishing even back then, a tremendous amount, the little curly tail worms. They would hit my bait and I wouldn't know it. And there's a ton of underwater footage back then even where guys would be fishing with mono, which has a 10 or 15, 20% stretch, and didn't even know a fish had swallowed their bait. Well, I promise you, with braid, you're going to know. You're gonna feel that little tick at the end of your rod instantly. And if you watch my videos, you can see that when I feel that little tick, I reel down, I take the line in, and then I give it a good hook set. That's the most important thing, all right? So braid, okay guys? Braided line, 20, 30-pound test. Okay, now we're gonna get to what you need for hooks. All right, very simple. Again, it's not complicated. And again, you can spend as much or as little as you want. This is a 4-aught, okay, 4.0. You'll see it on the package. Gamakatsu hook. These are about $1 a piece, I think. But these guys are razor sharp. They're also not a real thick. They're not real thick. And the reason why I do that is because I'm fishing with a Senko style bait, okay? And you want that thing to have as much natural action as possible. So there's your 4-aught hook. Then you're gonna need to get a couple of different things of weights. I typically use a 1/4 ounce bullet weight. You can buy the lead, which is the cheapest. That's what I normally use. You can also buy the, I have some of the tungsten that are coated in black. They're just a little smaller. Tungsten is denser than lead, so they make a smaller weight. Oh, that might be lead, just coated. I'm not sure. That could be a tungsten. But doesn't matter. That's a 1/4 ounce. I also have some 1/16 ounce. But it's, you know, when you're shore fishing, again, you're trying to get that good cast. This I usually use when I'm on a boat or a kayak, which I'm going to be hopefully on tomorrow, because you don't need to cast it as far. I'm not trying to cast it 30 or 40 yards. I'm just, you know, casting it maybe 20 or 30 feet off the edge of the boat. So you don't need as heavy as a weight. So you're going to need a couple bags of hooks. You're going to need some varying weights, okay? And then you're just going to put it all together. You know, I've covered knot tying before. I'm not going to go over that again, but I use a Palomar knot on my hooks. It's that simple, guys. It's really a very simple setup. Now, what are you going to use for bait? Now that your rod is all set up, you've got more bait on God's green earth than you can imagine. If you want to buy something inexpensive, the Yum brand of bait, of stick bait, is incredible. You know, they're like $2.96 for a pack of, I believe it's 8, okay? This happens to be a Yum swimming dinger, you know? The Yum dinger are here, okay? There you go, Yum, that's the dinger. It's got no tail, and it shows you right on there typically how to hook it up. It's very simple. It's got a little slit in the side for you to run the hook through. I'll show you. Oh, it's getting dark. The Yums all have this little slit. So your hook goes down through the worm, down through the stick bait, and then right in here. Basically straight up just to the edge of the bait. You don't want it coming out, okay? This way you're completely weedless. And if you ever get snagged up on something, don't yank it because you're gonna bring the hook out. Just easily twang the line, okay? So there you go. That's pretty much a basic setup, guys. That's rod, that's reel, that's line. And of course, if you're trying to save money, you don't have to buy braided line, but braided line has gotten much cheaper. This is spider wire 50 pound. That's gonna go on my spinning reel. And this was $9.96 at Walmart. You know, I bought it there because my local bait and tackle shop doesn't carry. I like the spider wire. I've got the 50, and I've got the 30 that's going on my bait caster. So, but if you want to buy something inexpensive, a lot of these places can put line on for you. Just go with the mono or go with the fluoro. Either one they all work fine. I'm just showing you what I like to use because of the sensitivity of the braid. You won't miss anything. And when you start catching fish, you're going to be excited, you're going to love it, and you're going to want to keep catching fish. Okay, well, I hope that that helped for anybody out there who's just beginning to fish. I know if you're already fishing and you've been fishing for years, this is just a basic how-to video. But I have a lot of people ask me questions, not so much on YouTube yet, but in private life, when they see me fishing, people will come up to me and, hey, what are you fishing for? What are you using? They're curious. Okay, I hope you found this informative. Again, this is Mike here with One Man Op Fishing. Hopefully, I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, have a good one.